Quantum horror.
Terrifying shadows have been following me since I moved into my grandmother's old Victorian house. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks. You know how these ancient houses creak and moan. But then I found her diary hidden behind a loose brick in the basement. The entries started normal enough. Until 1967. That's when she began writing about the Watchers, dark figures that would stand in corners, growing taller as night fell. She wrote they were collecting something from the living. Last night I saw them clearly for the first time. 3 impossibly tall shadows, their heads touching the ceiling. They don't move like anything human, more like smoke caught in an invisible wind. This morning I noticed small black marks on my skin, like tiny handprints. They're spreading slowly. In her final diary entry, my grandmother mentioned the same marks. She disappeared 3 days later. I'm sharing this because I know they're watching me type right now. Their presence is getting stronger. If these videos suddenly stop, you'll know why. Don't look for me in the corners of your room. By then, I'll be one of them. And whatever you do, don't stare at the shadows too long. They stare back. Shadowy figures have been haunting my apartment for a week straight. At first, I thought it was just my imagination running wild, but then I started noticing strange things. Curtains moving without wind, small objects disappearing and reappearing in different places, and weird noises at night. Last night, I woke up in terror. I felt something touching me. When I opened my eyes, I saw a dark shadow leaning over me. It was tall, thin, with long, distorted arms. I tried to scream, but no sound came out of my mouth. The shadow got closer, and then I heard a whisper. "You're not alone here." I ran from the room in panic and turned on all the lights in the apartment. But it didn't help. The shadows just multiplied. They crawled on the walls, hid in corners, and slowly approached me. This morning I found scratch marks on my back in the mirror. Now I know it wasn't a dream. Night is approaching again, and I know they're waiting for me there, in the darkness. The worst part, they're getting stronger each night, and I don't know how much longer I can hold on.
Quantum horror.
Terrifying truth about mirrors. They don't always show what's real. Found this old apartment listing for dirt cheap. Too good to be true, they said, should have listened. First red flag was the key. It felt ice cold, like it was pulling heat from my fingers. But I needed a place, and beggars can't be choosers. The moment I stepped inside, everything felt wrong. Empty rooms, dusty air, and this smell, like old pennies and winter frost. Then I saw it. One chair just sitting there in the corner, facing the wall. Nobody leaves a single chair in an empty apartment. Walking through felt like moving through syrup. The air got heavier with each step, and those whispers, so faint I couldn't tell if they were real or just my mind playing tricks. But the mirror, that's when I knew. I moved my hand, and my reflection followed just a fraction too slow. Blinked, and it kept its eyes open for a split second longer. I ran, didn't even lock up.
But here's the thing, I checked the building records later. That apartment hasn't been rented in 15 years, not since they found the last tenant's body sitting in a chair facing the wall. The listing disappeared the next day. But sometimes, when I pass by that building at night, I swear I can see someone in that window, moving just a little too slow. Whatever you do, check your reflection tonight. Make sure it's following you exactly, just in case.
Continuation story. The testimonies. Everything you've heard so far, every whisper, every terrified recounting wasn't a single story. It was a collection, a mosaic of fear. At first, it seemed like mere coincidences, different people describing similar events, the flickering lights, the shadow in the doorway, the voice that wasn't there. But then we started noticing something chilling. Each story had a detail that didn't belong to the person telling it, a name they didn't recognize, a place they'd never been, an event that hadn't happened to them yet. A researcher compiled these testimonies, hoping to find a rational explanation. He mapped the connections, tracking where each person lived, what they did, what they feared. And then he saw it. The testimonies weren't just linked, they were sequential. Each person's story ended with something they had heard from another, without realizing it. A whisper passed from one to the next, like a contagion. And then, the final, most terrifying realization. The last person who shared their experience described something none of the others had mentioned. A new detail, a detail about you, your home, your reflection, what you were doing right now, and then they stopped talking because their story had reached its end, and yours is just beginning.
Quantum horror.